Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. As we have looked at some parables Jesus told that are all recorded in Matthew 13, I have been telling you that these are highly complex stories and that somewhere in them is some sort of twist that leaves us puzzled and pondering how this thing is like the kingdom of God. These stories cause us to work with them, to massage them for meaning. And what better way to live with and search for God until God finds us? Our parable today might sound like a simple parable like the others, and might even seem to make some sense at first. Here's the parable in Matthew 13, verse 44. The kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field, which someone found and hid. Then in his joy he goes and sells all that he has and buys that field. Now, just to make sure you've got the story, a person walking through a field discovers a buried treasure, reburies it, and goes and buys the field to celebrate. Now, in spite of the fact that we aren't supposed to allegorize the parables, we usually do, and in this one we often let the treasure represent the kingdom of God. And we use this parable to say that we do what we can to possess the treasure of God's kingdom. We should know better. We should know that there's nothing we can do to possess the kingdom. It comes to us as a gift out of the grace of God. So buying the field, trying to possess the kingdom, isn't the point. So what is the twist? Well, the first thing we need to know is that in that day there really wasn't anything like First National Bank. So the place that most people put their riches for safekeeping was that they buried it in the ground. So a story about finding a buried trove of riches wasn't that unexpected in Jesus' day. But because that's where most people put their treasures, there were laws about such things. And a very well-known law at the time was that if you bought a field and found in it a treasure, like in this parable, the treasure reverted to the original owner of the field. In other words, if Joe owned a field and sold it to Ben, and then Ben found the treasure, Ben kept the field, but Joe got the treasure back. So, applying that to the story that Jesus told, the man finds the treasure, reburies it, and in his joy goes and buys the field, only to end up giving the treasure to the person he bought the field from. And we have to ask, how is that like the kingdom of God? Well, the most common thought about this parable is that it is mostly about the joy. That's one little detail that sets this parable apart from some others like it. The story says that when he found the treasure in his joy, he bought the field. And maybe that's a way of saying that when we discover the kingdom of God in our lives, we are filled with such joy that it just has to be acted upon. God in our lives elicits and demands a response, and that response is marked and known by delirious joy. St. Paul calls his faith the surpassing joy of having Christ as his Lord. And perhaps that's what Jesus is talking about here. And perhaps there is this too. In joy, the man bought the field, knowing that he would have to give the treasure away. Far too often we are possessed by our possessions and consumed by our consumerism. Maybe caught up in the joy of the kingdom of God, we are freed from our petty greeds. Maybe this story could be understood in a way to say that the man found the treasure and then bought the field so that he could be the one to give the fortune back to the one who had lost it, so that he could be the one to have the joy of helping another, so that he could be so caught up in the kingdom of God that his own good took a secondary place to the good he could do for another. I want to be the one to give this back to you and share my joy with you. I don't know about you, but a world where the good of the other is a source of joy for me sounds a lot like a world I'd like to live in. It sounds like the kingdom of God. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.